we're still a little bit ahead of time, but that's fine. Let's take some time for the panel. So we have Robert, Travis as representatives of our two sponsors on the panel, and also Sishir from PVEL. And we just want to reflect a little bit on what we've learned today and what we consider hot in solar rooftop inverters. Okay, can you switch on your cameras again? Great. And Travis. Travis?
Yes, sir, I'm coming in.
Okay, great. Thought you were out for a coffee or something. Okay, cool.
No,
then,
sorry.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit on the segments. So I think the first question I wanted to kickstart this presentation is a little bit. I think Travis, you already tackled that. So the first trade fairs have taken place physically again this year. So in China we had SNEC. Obviously there were only Chinese because it was hard to access. REI took place in India, so also mostly domestic people there, but not as much as in as in China, obviously. And in Europe we had Intersolar after it was delayed 2 times, but finally it took place this month, and yeah, it felt like a little bit like a children's birthday party to to get to know and see all the people again. So, but the question would be, what were the key learnings from other that people were very happy to see each other again? Maybe I think Robert, you want to start because Travis already addressed that partly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, I come back to storage. Personally, I'm based in the Netherlands. In Belgium, for instance, they had a quite sudden change of regulation when it comes to feedback into the grid. So from one day to the other, we had a high demand, really high demand for storage and everything that is included in the storage system. But besides the storage, I mean the high power modules, I think it's a hot topic. Every brand is working and seeing how they can improve the product to have yeah, the availability to connect high power modules. I think that those two are the biggest, the hottest topics at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, Sishir, you have been at REI or?
No, I've been. I have a small kid at home, so I'm trying to be as safe as possible. But I can answer that question because there's a lot of solar being deployed in India, and power was an essential. Even during the lockdown, the project timelines, especially for large projects, did not get as affected as I expected them to be. So a lot of solar is being deployed, and a lot of interest is coming up. We have a long way to go on our rooftop targets, but I think at least from an overall deployment perspective, COP26 is coming up soon. So you will hear a lot more from India as well. We are one of the leaders. So there's a lot of action going on. And I think my learning is that technology is rapidly evolving on the module side. And on the inverter side, there is, I'm seeing a lot more interest in module level power electronics. So the top 2-3 companies that you hear about in the West are now being seen more visibly in India as well. So, but I'm not seeing much of storage. I think it's still something that is expensive for the residential and the rooftop budgets. I'm seeing stationary storage conversations, but the adoption is still something that I haven't really seen.
Okay. Okay, let's maybe stick then to storage a little bit, because I think Robert, you mentioned obviously Belgium where things changed. In Holland, they haven't. So we're still having net metering. And so that's why Holland is still a white spot on the European storage landscape on the map. So, but what are we seeing now? I think electricity prices are going through the roof. That means for rooftop in particular, solar is with storage is also very, very attractive. So what are you seeing that when you sell your inverters at the moment? So how much demand is there for products with storage or for at least inverters capable to add storage later? How big is the interest here?
Yeah, well, yeah, for Holland, it's still quite low. Of course, I agree with Sishir. It's still quite expensive. I mean, the inverter, the hybrid battery-ready inverter itself is not that much more expensive than the regular inverter. But yeah, agree. The batteries itself, they are quite expensive right now. But a lot of countries, they have subsidies that give, yeah, you get money from basically the government to invest in storage. It happens in Belgium, for example, and I do know for it's a different part of storage, but the EV charger, for example, you get money for buying EV charger in Germany, and I think even in the UK it's close to free for the consumers because you get that high amount of money back. It is yeah, very interesting to invest in those products. As far as numbers, I can make an estimate. In Belgium, for example, where there's no net metering allowed, the demand for storage or battery-ready inverters is, I think it's around 90%. It's really high. For the Netherlands, it's significantly lower. I guess, yeah, more like 10-15%. But also in countries like the Netherlands, where net metering is still allowed, they look at neighbor countries and see that things can change quite rapidly. So they are yeah, trying to be future-proof and have the battery-ready inverter already. Yeah.
Yeah, as I understand, I think in the Netherlands, as of 2023, I think things should also change at least. Yeah, step by step. So, but yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
they're planning, but it's still not concrete. It's still yeah. There are ideas. They start planning on starting it to do in 2023, but it's not how to say it, concrete yet.
Fixed yet? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, not
Michael,
fixed yet.
I'd like to make a point if when Robert's done.
Yeah, please.
I'm seeing a lot of interest in storage in the US. A lot of interest. So energy storage, inverter, battery management system, battery management system, power electronics. Everyone's talking to each other. So there's a lot of interest in cell and in battery packs, racks. You know, the entire setup. And I know that today we're not talking about storage in particular, but the residential ESS, which a lot of the developers are talking about in the US, has elements of power electronics as well as power storage. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of interest. In fact, we are a member of the Keulen group, and we have a cell testing facility in Germany. And we're seeing a lot of exciting asks, you know, where there's an OEM trying to buy in the cell from somewhere, but putting up together a ESS system and selling to the US. So we're seeing that. And the other thing on storage is there's a huge market for India, not to be discussed here, but is the electric mobility market. Two-wheelers, three-wheelers. There is a very huge demand again for testing there because a lot of this is imported and not always is this reliability tested. But two use cases, ESS in the US and storage in mobility in India. These are two very large trends that I'm seeing, and they will continue over the next few years.
Mm-hmm. What are you seeing, Travis?
Yeah, for the US, when I was there as a product manager, I saw a lot of people requesting whole house backup. And I don't know if you've ever tried to dive into whole house backup, but it's really difficult, right? And so there's a couple products out there, and we're releasing one, but it's kind of a ridiculous ask. But people like in California with like wildfires, they saw their power go out, and I think Robert, you were talking about it. Was it
in
you,
Texas,
Robert?
the power outage.
In Texas, yeah, in Texas. After that, it just freaked people out. And then they're like, we want whole house backup. We're like, do you know what that means? That's like a 200 amp backup. And it's very difficult to accomplish that. I don't ever hear people ask for that in Europe. And it's a very contrast between the US and Europe with the whole house backup thing. But as far as battery availability, if I want to go back to that, I'm hearing almost everybody ask for that. Like, it needs to be battery ready. I don't know this like phrase that came out, it needs to be battery ready, it needs to be battery ready. And so, and then, there's a price difference between the inverters as far as price. And so they need to gauge that. But then like, I see a lot of battery companies come into the market right now. Like, I'm being pinged at by like 15 different battery companies all over, like Portugal, Spain, Poland, Italy. They all have Dubai. Like, they're all trying to get into the market. It's driving the price of especially low voltage batteries down hard. And even we're seeing high voltage batteries dive down too. So it's like, it's a great time. And with a lot of customers, it's really interesting. They buy an inverter and they get one battery, and then they see, oh, that lasted me till like 8 p.m. Okay, I'm gonna get 2 more, and then like boom, boom, and then all of a sudden, okay, I'm good until like 6 a.m. And then they're so excited. It's like, that's like really the most exciting thing to see as a designer, to see like, I'm completely good, and I'm like, okay, now the winter's coming up. You might want to get 2 more, So anyways.
But I think so. But the interesting thing here is then probably also that cost is not so much of an issue anymore, right? Because I think so even a solar system with a battery costs probably less than a pure solar systems 5 years ago. So that means we talk about completely different dimensions. So especially if you talk about the typical European home, actually they need maybe a 3 kilowatt system, and you add an equivalent battery, a little bit larger maybe. I think that then you're under 10K. And so an electric bicycle costs 4,000 euros today. And then you have a solar system actually where you can produce all your electricity. So I think the dimensions are totally different than they were in the past. But the question is actually, are we seeing now that the demand is growing? And in California, we have also now mandatory solar for rooftops. We're seeing that also more and more in Europe. I think in Germany, we have 4 states now who will start to implement that. So 3 cities, Hamburg, Bremen, Berlin, and Baden-Württemberg as of 2023. So that means there will be gigantic demand coming up. And if we look at the current supply situations, so for modules, it's really bad. We are all aware of that. So many projects are being delayed these days. So how is the situation for inverters? And some manufacturers who are publicly traded already also said that the pipeline is growing, but revenue is decreasing because they are selling less. So what's your take, and how is it with Growatt and Solis in terms of inverter supply when we see all this demand?
You want to go, Robert? I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so for us, we were struggling against purchasing chips against the car manufacturers, right? The car manufacturers have more buying power. They get the chips first. But we front purchased a lot of chips because I guess we saw the writing on the wall. So we bought a lot ahead of time. But there was probably 4 or 5 months where customers were a little aggravated about like their shipping time was getting pushed out further. But now we've pretty much fully caught up. Probably by next month, we're fully caught up with all of our orders. But it was painful for a while. I'm not going to lie about it. Like customer, especially with a booming sector, it's like you're dealing with shortages, and people don't want to hear it most of the time. You know, they just like, I want my product. I purchased it. I want it now. So, but you know, right now I think we're starting to stabilize. But even so, like, you have to be careful in these situations, because then you get like tier 2 manufacturer, well, tier 2 like capacitors or IGBTs, you know. So you got to be careful. You have to say, wait, we're waiting for our products that we like, that we, you know, because we don't want to put in these secondary products, these secondary capacitors, relays, whatever, you know. So that also goes in effect, where you have to watch what's available too, because it's not just purchasing a capacitor, resistor, it's a lot of things. It's even the DC switch from like Santon, you know. It's like you have to be careful about that whole process, and just to make sure, you know, that PVL doesn't chase you around and be like, hey, your inverter's doing this, you know, because they'll do that.
Okay, but
Yeah.
you think so, despite all the, I think we still see the shortage. Actually, I think car manufacturers, I think if you buy some electric cars today, I think you have to wait for a year or so, and but you consider it rather solved for Solis now, the shortage?
There's a few products within our product ranges that are still a little bit behind, but most of them are caught up. Like, for example, our AC coupled, it like boomed for Belgium, right? It just like, it went off the scale, like boomed. I'm sure you know, Robert. But like, so that is like, it's almost there, but it's like, we're still like, we just need so much, and it's hard to meet that demand. But all of the other products have been caught up, as probably this month or maybe next month.
Okay.
Yeah, and same for Growatt. Yeah, I think that the chips are the biggest problem. And yeah, demand went up, went sky high. But yeah, we're a bit further behind than we were hoping for, but we're catching up as well. Yeah, so it's more or less the same as Solis, as you, Travis.
A lot of other things people don't talk about is the shipping price has almost 10 times as what it used to be.
Yeah.
So the freight cost, nobody wants to hear that right now, but yeah, that has skyrocketed.
Yeah, I think so. Local manufacturers, wherever they are happy about that because now they still at least some competitive.
You know?
True.
Yeah.
But in any case, so but I think that's a good point, because let's talk about a little bit of cost. If we still look at the module, which is now even more is again the biggest chunk of a solar system again. So we had module prices from, I don't know, 15 months ago, so which were down to 17 cents for tier 1 modules. Now it's 25 and going upwards. So if you look at fully delivered, including taxes, transport, you're talking over 30 cents, and we're not talking US, where you have some import barriers that have to be added. But we're talking Europe. So what's happening on the inverter side? So can you help actually at least to make the weight a little bit lighter that comes from the module, or are you adding to that?
You want my price list right now, Michael?
No, but general trends. I think people can ask you personally.
Yeah. As far as you're asking if the price of the inverter is increasing with the shortages and stuff like that, from what I've heard around the whole market is all prices are increasing, but we have yet to increase ours. So it's still being evaluated. So
yeah,
do you want me to reduce it? Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if in the end it affects all products, I guess. And yeah, there's nothing really we can do about it. It's not in our power. Like you said, Red, is the prices of transportation. They probably will affect the prices of every product in the end. But yeah, hopefully we can all reduce the growth on price.
How are wholesalers and reacting to that actually, or installers in the end? Because if we look at residential products, or projects, systems, they are not so price sensitive, right? So we are seeing now, I think in Europe, coming some module manufacturers to the market who start to offer high-end heterojunction module products that cost twice as much as typical PERC modules. And so people are buying that. Those guys are also sold out. So I think if we look at the rooftop and residential rooftop market, and probably the commercial as well, industrial is probably more price sensitive, but I think there shouldn't be not too much problems or complaints. Or what are you seeing actually?
About the price increase?
Yeah. So what's the feedback you're getting actually from the market?
I can't really talk to that because we haven't increased it yet.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, so lucky you.
So I don't know. I mean, everybody's just kind of silent and I guess waiting for us to increase it, but we haven't yet. So maybe, maybe our strategy is, I guess, we don't want to disturb the whole process. So we're going to see if it levelizes or normalizes rather than frustrate our customers. Our beloved customers, we try to take care of them as much as we can. And when we price increase, they don't really appreciate that, obviously. So, but they're understanding right now. People are very understanding during coronavirus. They, even relates to service related issues when you're like, we have to go through certain things in order to go to your site. People can be very forgiving, I guess, in these times. And so as far as pricing, I can't speak to that. Maybe Robert, I don't think they've increased, yeah. But I know a lot of others have.
But I think, of course, and Robert, please go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, we haven't increased yet as well.
Okay,
but to be honest, the sales department is on that.
Yeah, but so I think the shortage, obviously, also as Travis, you already mentioned that. Of course, some companies, when they are desperate, then they use tier 2, tier 3 materials, ingredients. So coming back to testing, Sishir, actually, have you been seeing that actually also that the quality in products you've been testing has deteriorated due to the material shortage?
I don't think there's a causal relationship there, not at least what we have seen. But if I see a batch by a certain manufacturer constantly have an issue, like one model, and then when they come back with a replacement, the structure of the inverter is slightly different from the inside, then you wonder, oh, maybe, so the answer is I can't give a causal answer that because there was a shortage, we are seeing more things, but it is possible because one thing I've realized is anywhere in the world, solar is extremely competitive across the value chain. So people would do everything possible to fight the last dollar, the last cent. So yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing any particular relationship between shortage and quality, but I'm seeing between patterns and quality, and that may be because of shortage. I don't know.
Okay, but there's also another thing taking place on the module side. Of course, we've also seen the move. Travis, you've shown that actually in a very short period of time, actually we moved from 300 to sometimes even 600 watt plus, at least in the residential, to 500 watt or 400 watt plus. But so we have these new cells, we have new soldering. So there's a lot of new techniques to get the modules to higher power, higher efficiencies, and there, of course, there were bigger issues in the beginning. So like it is often with products, right? Are we seeing that also with inverters over the last, I don't know if you compare inverters over the last 2 years, that they developed quite a bit, also that they have more safety things, and so there's so much more stuff packed into the device that it really becomes intelligent, and then of course still also increases in efficiency, at the same time stays as cost efficient as possible. So have we been seeing also more issues due to that that technological development?
I'll see. Sorry, is that question for Travis? Go ahead, Travis.
That's for all of you.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Sishir, if you want to go.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I've observed from outside of the market, right? This is not P-Well's opinion, but as a user, 10 years ago when I started in this industry, the few names that were big in solar modules still continue to be, right? But over the last 10 years, I've seen maybe a 3-4 year phase where a certain inverter brand was very famous. And then, another 3 years, somebody else was very famous, completely owned the market. And now there are 2-3 that are really up there on the charts. Now, this is not bad. It's how a market evolves. But when you give somebody a 10-year warranty, extended warranty, or a 7-year warranty on a 5-year product, and you're going to be not be in the top few or not be around, or whatever that reason may be, it's a risk. And I can speak to the modules very clearly, Michael, is that just because the modules are, the technology is rapidly developing does not mean that people are using, poor quality products. But I'll tell you what I've seen is that for the longest time, the 250s and the 330s and the 350s were like the bread and butter. Now, suddenly over the last 3-4 years, you're seeing 1/3, higher wafer size and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. That's what we want as an industry. But if you're going to be looking at a module over 6 or 7 different dimensions, the wafer length, the bifacial, or, whatever, and you're seeing activity across all of those dimensions, you need to get reliability testing, because we don't know if this is going to last for 25 years or not. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to be seeing a pattern where certain manufacturers are going ahead versus the others over a period of 10 years, or you're seeing a pattern where the same set of manufacturers are coming up with rapid expansion in technology, whoever is buying this is taking a 25-year call and at least a 10-year call on the inverter, at least 5 to 10 years, right? So I think it is becoming necessary. And also, I mean, we're hitting record lows in India for tariff. And that's pretty much the same in most places and in the Middle East and all of that. If you look at the operating model or the financing model, the only input that is in control is the generation, the yield. Everybody knows the interest rates. Everybody knows the tenors. I'm sorry, I'm speaking finance stuff here, but everybody knows what goes into the model. The only thing that changes is your generation. You have a little bit of a loss, or you have a shutdown for a month because of a module issue, a product issue. Your IRRs are going to be massively affected from the project. So I think the rapid change is great, but it scares me for the guys who are holding 20-year risks on their balance sheet.
Yeah,
right. I think if I want to talk to something about like the hybrids inverters, that because the hybrid inverter is slowly becoming the dominant inverter, at least for us, and that's where a lot of the technology is. That's where a lot of control is. There's so much that goes into it. Like, I don't know, just to give you some perspective, we're on version 37 of our hybrid like control function algorithm, right? So there's a lot of learning involved because it's a brand new like concept, right? As far as in the past 5 years, so we're really fine tuning it and tailoring it, and there's a lot of control. And then you have external things like the meters and the battery, and so a lot of that is fine tuning. Like it's coming from like Apple 1 or Apple 3 first, I think, right? And then 4, 5, 6, all the way up to iPhone 10 XR, to iPhone 13. So there's a lot of fine tuning over time. And if you don't do that if you don't keep up with the fine tuning, because people keep asking for more, right? Like it's the constant thing, like more safety stuff, like we talked about earlier. Like the arc fault is requirement now. Pretty much people just demand it. And there's a rapid shutdown nowhere in Europe, and I still don't even believe in that concept. But we have it in the US, and it's like it's ridiculous. But there's just so much going on within the inverter. It's like you said, it's becoming like a smart hub. Like that's the hub of everything going on, and it's monitoring what you're doing day and night, right? And that was different before. So like, and then a lot of people struggle setting it up too. Like as far as installing it, there's a lot of training involved. So as far as the hybrid, like it's constantly, our team is constantly training people on how to set it up. So like, I guess to go back to what you asked, like it's slowly, everything's getting smaller, the box and everything's getting smaller, and more technology is being pounded in. It's just like a phone. It's just like a phone, you know, over the period of, and then I know for a fact that we're just constantly changing it rapidly. But people, for some reason, they still want a display on the inverter. They always, I don't know, this is kind of a side topic, but like people, you know, like they always ask, like I say, should we get rid of the display? You know, like I always ask, because, and then like people always say, no, don't ever get rid of the display. So this is a constant battle. I don't know if you deal with it, Robert, but I think it's kind of hilarious for me.
Same. A lot of people like the display
too, yeah. But most people are getting rid of it, but we still have it. Anyway, sorry to get off topic, but
okay. But let's maybe, I think so, to finalize it a little bit. So if you look in your crystal ball and look at inverters in 5 years, so how will they look like as part of the solar system? So with all these political changes we're seeing now, climate change pressure, governments adapting, moving, and of course all these technology inputs we're seeing. So 5 years from now, so how do you think a residential solar system, and especially with the smart part of it, as the inverter, looking like?
I can go, or Robert, or
let's go first. I'll go second.
Yeah, okay. So this is actually a hot topic debate within our company. The debate is, will somebody else take care of the smart function, right? Will it be Apple? Will it be Google? Will it be Amazon? And the inverter will be just part of that. Or will it be, the inverter will be the central spot, and then it'll just be, you know, dealing everything. So for me, it might look different than say Robert, because Growatt, they have like, you know, smart plugs. They have a lot of neat little products, right, that you can deal, and that's the center of theirs is kind of their inverter, right? But for us, it's a little bit different. We're kind of like Google, you know what you're doing pretty well, right? Or Amazon or whatever. So we'll just be part of your system, and that's how we think the future will kind of look like. And then as far as batteries go, I don't know, maybe solid state, or there's a lot of different technologies coming out, but like there's a titanium one. And so that will be a big significant change. But yeah, we kind of see the inverter as part of the pie, not the whole center. So.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a choice. Like Growatt focuses on being the smart hub in the inverter, as my presentation focused on that part. I mean, at Growatt, we like to take matters into our own hands and not wait for other companies to see what they are doing. Of course, it has some benefits for having Google to do the smart hub. Growatt to choose to do it ourselves, and I think in 5 years it's more and more a standard device, standard installation at people's home. I mean, newly built houses are already, I mean, I think 99% where it is, of course, able to have solar panels on the roof. It's by default installed by the building company. So yeah, I think it becomes more and more standard. Yeah.
So that the customer also will not be necessarily in control of it anymore. So that you will be part of a swarm, a VPP or something like that. So this is a bigger thing, or?
Yeah, I think maybe not in 5 years, but in the end, I think that's something that we will see. And I think also to keep the grid stable. I mean, in Holland, sometimes the grid is not unstable, like having a power outage, but the power goes, it's that high that it's becoming a big problem for the companies, for electric companies to have to keep it stable. So the VPP will solve that problem.
Michael, I feel that there are two ways to look at this, the development, right? One is internal inside the property, home or office, and the other is external. I think there's definitely going to be more EV adoption, and storage is going to become more mainstream. But I also think there's a lot going on around home IoT, and Alexa, turn this on, Google, turn that on. With that, all that going on, I think there's home tech, which is going to probably develop inside the compound. But I think with the interaction, as Robert clearly pointed out, I think there's so much that can be done, at least in developing countries, around grid response and demand side response, and better planning of working with utilities. I think that's one thing. Second point on the external front is analytics. There is a lot I'm seeing on data analytics, and maybe this is a part of the inverter, but suddenly this is becoming a software and analytics kind of an intelligent, if I may be allowed to throw jargon, AI, machine learning, that kind of a play, than just an equipment, right? It's becoming more than that. And I think where I see 5 years from now, both internally and externally to the building, I think there are these 3-4 aspects that I feel that are going to be becoming mainstream.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Travis made a good point, because I think the question is really who will own the data and who will be able to use the data. Because of course, if you have a lot of inverters in the field, it's like with your cars. Actually, I prefer always to use Google Maps over the navigation system from whatever car brand you have, because it's so much better. But if you have actually, I think all these inverters out in the field, you can say a lot actually about how demand and supply is happening in markets. So it will be really interesting. So I think the different strategies from the inverter companies, I think rooftops will play a big role, alone or aggregated in bigger fleets. So I think we will stay tuned. It was exciting for me to talk with you, to learn from you. With our first event on inverters. It will not be the last, and I'm really happy. Just for the end, thanks to everyone who contributed, to the audience who stayed with us. So thanks again also to our sponsors, Solis and Growatt. We will have if you are, until you get you have access to the inverter report, just in case if you haven't looked at our recent reports, you can download them all for free on our website. Our next event will actually take exactly place in 4 weeks. It will be on solar module innovations. It will be a 2-day event. It will be huge, and you will see already on the next slide that we have a lot of sponsors. Basically, most of the big solar manufacturers, also some inverter manufacturers, are sponsoring the event. If you're interested in sponsoring as well or speaking, please get in touch with us. Thanks again to everyone. Have a nice day and take care. Ciao.
Thanks, everyone.
You.